Hi, in this lesson, we'll talk about a few program planning techniques and best practices. If you recall from a previous lesson, programs should have good programming style. This entails making your program readable by yourself and others. This will come in handy when you are writing complex functions and programs. A proactive technique to good programming is to take some time to effectively plan your program. One technique for program planning is called top-down design. With top-down design, we take a big problem and we break that problem into several smaller problems. We can then break each of those down into even smaller problems. We continue to do this until we have a problem that is simple and easy for us to solve. So even though we start with this big problem that may seem complicated, by breaking the problem down into smaller problems, then solving each of these smaller problems, we make our programs much more manageable and our solutions much more clear. So, for example, if we were making a movie, well, that's a big task, and you may not even know where to start. There are several things we need to do. We need to write a script, we need to hire a cast, film the movie, and edit the movie. But each of those are pretty big tasks as well. For example, for filming the movie, we might break those down into filming scene 1, then filming scene 2, and then filming scene 3. We might break the script into write scene 1, scene 2, and then scene 3. Eventually, we get to tasks so simple, then we can do it with one function. Decomposition means breaking your program down into small, manageable parts that are easy to understand. We decompose large, messy functions into several small, simple functions. It's important to plan our programs before we dive into coding. As our problems get more complex, it will become more and more helpful to take a moment to plan our programs out before using computer syntax. We're basically writing a roadmap to make sure our plan for tackling the problem is successful and efficient. Here's an example. Let's think of a simple task like driving to a new supermarket. If you've never been there before and you just get in the car and start driving, you might make it all the way there, but it might not have been the most efficient route. But if you take a few minutes to plan out directions before you get in the car, you'll make sure that your route is direct and successful. We use pseudocode to write out the steps of a problem before translating them into code that the computer will understand. Pseudocode is intended for humans to be able to easily read and understand. It would not work in machine code until it's translated later using the correct syntax. Let's see how it works. Let's say we want to write a program that lets the user guess a number from 1 to 100. Here's the program in natural language. It easily explains how the program should run. If we skip straight to what this looks like in Lua, it's a bit of a jump. That's where pseudocode comes in. Pseudocode is still easy to read, but closer to the correct programming structure. In pseudocode, we set up the functions and variables in a language that is still easy to understand, but that is also closer to the final programming structure. We don't worry too much about proper syntax, but want to include conditionals, functions, and variables that will be needed. After writing pseudocode, it's much less difficult to translate this into the programming language by adding the correct syntax and indentation. Flowcharts are another useful tool for planning a program. These come in handy when writing conditionals. The flowchart shown here represents the conditional that we wrote in that last problem. Here are the initial variables, and this section is the conditional. If the guess matches the password, then this message is printed. If the guess doesn't match the password, then the flowchart continues to the next condition. If the guess is higher than the password, then too high is printed. If this condition is false, then the guess must be less than the password, and too low is printed. Flowcharts and pseudocode are both great techniques to plan your program before getting into the syntax and specifics of the programming language. All right, let's take a look and see how we can apply this in our programs.